Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple.
The first leg of this historic Milan derby, as Inter Milan will now take a healthy 2-0 lead into the second leg, courtesy of a strong first half performance that Milan just couldn't recover from. Dzeko and Mkhitaryan were the scorers, but what tactics did we see from both managers? Well, let's take a look. And we'll be focusing on the play where Milan was on the ball, as they did have more possession, probably due to the game state. But Inter's defensive shape was also a massive factor in the final scoreline. A lot of you have been asking what software I use for my analysis, and it's called Once Video Analyzer Pro, and it's already pretty affordable, but I've teamed up with them to give any of you who want to try it a further 10% off by using the code FMS10. So visit their website through the link in the description below if you're interested. And throughout the match, the Inter shape was designed to limit AC Milan's play through the center as much as possible, with their midfielders not faring as high as usual on the touch list. And from the goal kick, would often see Kier and Tomori look to drop either side of the goalkeeper, with a double pivot remaining in support, Giroud high with Diaz ready to pick up a second ball after Benacer had gone off. But especially in the first half, Inter Milan were aggressive in their press, with Martinez and Dzeko being perfectly positioned high up the pitch, ready to press a centre-back each. And this will be backed up by their midfield, whilst Çalhanoğlu will be able to pick up Diaz, who was looking to operate between the lines. And to back up the press in these phases, both of the wingbacks had the freedom to push higher up the pitch onto the AC Milan fullbacks, as Inter were willing to take more of a risk and remain with this wider back three that could almost be a man-to-man situation at times. Here we see that perfect pressing structure with the high wingbacks as well as the forwards ready to press the centre-back, and everything being backed up in the midfield as well. And at times, with the forwards being perfectly positioned to press the centre-backs, we saw Milan get much more involved in the build-up play, trying to make it a more distinguished 3 versus 2. But what we would see in these scenarios from Inter Milan is one of the forwards initially looking to cut off one of the passing lanes to a centre-back, whilst the other did the same on the remaining centre-back. One of the forwards would then be able to press from out to in, keeping the centre-back in their cover shadow so they couldn't be accessed. And this would then force the longer ball, looking to find Giroud and to get numbers around him for the second ball. Here we see one such situation, with Milan having that back three, and Dzeko will make the curved run onto the goalkeeper, forcing him long, even though in this one particular situation, the pass was potentially on. This actually plays heavily into the first goal, as Milan are once again building up with their back three, with the goalkeeper being highly involved. Here we see Martinez pressing from out to in, so Kier can't be accessed, whilst Dzeko is ready to spring onto Tomori, so he is forced long. And whenever they did go long to Giroud, they looked to get numbers around him for the second ball, with Benacer already making the run and being joined by Tonali. However, it also leaves them vulnerable. In this case, Milan do not get the second ball, so Benacer and Tonali are both the wrong side of the ball, meaning that Krunic is the only central midfielder in position. Dimarco had been high up from the pressing phase, so is perfectly positioned to make the run in behind. The midfielders having been high for the second ball means that there's a massive gap that can be run into, and a lovely dummy from Martinez allows Mkhitaryan to finish. And in general open play, the principle was the same, looking to prevent AC Milan playing through the centre. And with Milan only having 2 centre-backs in this build-up phase, Inter Milan were perfectly positioned to press man-to-man. However, there was a difference with the goalkeeping phase, as in open play, Inter did not want to take this risk of having these man-to-man situations, particularly with Giroud being a great target man and having runners off of him who could potentially exploit these gaps. So, especially having taken the lead so early, there was no need for Inter Milan to take the risk. So instead, they were much more conservative with the use of their wingbacks, who would instead stay deeper on the wingers, so that they had a genuine back 5 when defending. This naturally meant that the space for AC Milan was out wide with the fullbacks, which Inter didn't mind too much as the centre was still protected. Here we see just that, with the central front 2, although deeper in this case, and the midfield 3, meaning that Hernandez has a lot of space in this region. But Inter were not passive and willing to let the fullbacks have the ball easily in these situations, and they still wanted to continue their press. So whenever Hernandez got the ball in deeper regions, rather than having Dumfries push up from deep, Instead, it was Barella who would move on to the fullback, whilst Çalhanoğlu and Mkhitaryan would then cover the pivots. And although AC Milan would have the 3 versus 2 in the midfield in these situations, Diaz between the lines could be picked up, because they also had the 3 versus 1 against Giroud. So, Darmian in these scenarios would be more than willing to push high up the pitch, and with the central options cut out, it would be difficult for AC Milan to progress. Here we see that Hernandez initially has the space, but as soon as he looks to progress, Barella is straight onto him. Diaz is between the lines, however he's already picked up, so there's no easy option for progression. Down the right hand side, the general principle could be the same, where when Calabria got the ball, the idea was to have Mkhitaryan push out so that they could shift just as seamlessly as they did before. But the difference here is that Mkhitaryan doesn't quite have the legs that Barella does to move from out to in consistently throughout the 90. So at times he wouldn't be able to make it across. So this meant that AC Milan had a lot more dangerous success down the right hand side, with more shots coming from this side than the left hand side. This was because when Mkhitaryan was unable to cover, it left the onus on DiMarco to push high up the pitch, which was a problem as now Bastoni, who is much less of a natural wide defender than Darmian, would be dragged out wide. This would be made worse by Diaz also looking to operate in these regions, where Mkhitaryan could struggle to cover him. So at times, AC Milan had somewhat of an overload on this right hand side and could get into these dangerous zones. As it was throughout the 90, the wingbacks have all the space, and we see that Mkhitaryan isn't being as aggressive in looking to move on to Calabria. So DiMarco instead has to push up from defense. So now Bastoni is drawn out to the winger, and Tonali in this case is looking to make the run beyond Mkhitaryan. Similar scenario with Mkhitaryan being on Tonali instead, and DiMarco pushing high, so Bastoni is dragged out. So as the game went on, with Inter having had that lead, there was less and less need for them to be pressing as high up, and they became much more conservative with a lot less pressing. And instead of having the 2 forwards pressing the centre backs, they were now looking to cut out the double pivot. So at times it was basically a 5 versus 2 in these scenarios, making progress almost impossible. Although with even less of a press, we did see Milan get into some interesting situations higher up the pitch, especially when Origi came on and was more willing to take on his man, though Salamakers also had some success. But in this match it was to no avail. Overall, the second leg will be an uphill battle for AC Milan, and they'll be hoping that Rafael Leao will be back and at his peak to give them a realistic shot. For the manager tactical scores, Inzaghi's pressing structure made penetrative possession difficult for AC Milan, and he earns a 7, while Pioli just couldn't get his side in clear-cut situations, earning him a 4.5. But what are your thoughts? Drop them down below. And anything else you noticed, as always, not everything could be covered.
I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, you might enjoy the content available on my Patreon. Not only does Patreon help to support the continued production of content, as I am a one-man team, but it also gives you early access to videos that will come on the channel. You'll also get exclusive videos, get to vote on polls, and so much more. And it's cheaper than ever, no longer having a tier system, so everyone on the Patreon gets access to all the content. So head over to patreon.com/footballmadesimple to check it out.